Amber Heard never really loved Johnny Depp. You can see it in her facial expressions. She's she manipulated him. She got away with it for the most part. Now she has to pay. I think it's adjusted 13 million. They got her for 15 million. She won one of her arguments against him for 2 million. So I guess adjusted that should be 13 million. I don't even know if she has 13 million. I don't know how that works out, if she's forced to pay or if they garnish her checks. But I don't know what's gonna it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen to her life and her career, because she's pretty well hated now at this point. And in a weird way, I feel sorry for her in a weird way. Um, it's funny because my whole channel is about defending men's rights, telling the truth about bad female behavior, telling the truth about female nature, advising guys on what to look out for, how to go about things from my experience, etc. And yet, what's funny is that when guys actually win, when the truth really does come out, um, I actually feel sorry for these women in a weird way. Like, these are not healthy individuals. You know, these are not well-adjusted, kind, good-hearted people. These manipulative narcissists. And hopefully this is going to be a kind of beachhead for guys to come forward and say, hey, I got taken advantage of. I was lied about, in court or otherwise. Because Amber Heard is not rare or unique. These women out here are doing Amber Heard dirt, okay? They're doing Amber Heard type stuff. She did it on the largest level possible, and she went for the gusto. She absolutely swung for the fences and tried to totally ruin a man when she could have just walked away with $8 million is what he offered her in the divorce settlement. She could have just walked away with that. Instead, she went for the gusto because she's psychotic, and everybody sees it and believes it now that she's absolutely a compulsive liar in the worst way possible, setting up a sweethearted man who probably had a drug problem, who for sure has a drug problem, for sure has his demons that came out in court, but otherwise has a sweetheart, from everything that I saw, and most of their dirt was aired out, right? So this is just an evil person. It's a sick person, and I kind of feel sorry for her in a way, in a way. Like, what happened to this? And what's funny is that, like, from the testimonies and the indications that I saw in this trial, she had a good upbringing. So what warped her? Where did she go wrong? And the only thing I could say is culture. And I've talked about it on my channel. It's a red pill truth that you could come from the best background, the best family. If you're a female, these women come from the best backgrounds, the best families, and then once they get out into the world, once the culture starts to, grow around them, or they grow around the culture starts to affect them. We have a culture that encourages women to be manipulative narcissists. There's benefits in that. We have a culture that encourages women to use their sexuality as a weapon, use their looks and the desire of men to gain what they want, and whatever that may be. And I think what's behind a lot of her motivation to ruin Johnny Depp is radical feminism, the Me Too movement in its worst light, right? Ruin a guy. Why? What did he really do to you? What did Johnny Depp do that was so horrible? From the evidence and everything that I've seen, nothing. He was more successful than you. It's jealousy. And this is why I say she never loved him. She couldn't. she couldn't love him because she wouldn't have done what she did. I think that particularly with a woman who is, hate to say it, but plays for the other team. You know what I mean? That's not a good sign. Whenever a woman plays for the other team, it's not a good sign. She's emotionally damaged. She's got some kind of toxicity damage. And so many of these modern feminists play for the other side, or they play both sides. I think Amber Heard plays both sides, but I think she was married once before for the other side, and that's a real big red flag, man. You come across a woman who plays both sides, she's got some radical feminist ideology entrenched in her psychology. I guarantee it. And a lot of radical feminism ideology is based in vengeance. It's based in revenge against men for this supposed patriarchy or the supposed oppression that they constantly rage about, which is mostly nonsense. I don't need to get into that, but men, the patriarchy, quote unquote, is what gave them freedom. It gave them, security, gave them homes, gave them families and lives. Men built that, and yet they hate us for it. And I've talked about that a lot on my channel. But so no need to go deeply into that. But it's a radical, vitriolic ideology, and I believe that it causes women to do this kind of stuff. When you actually go onto their channels, their pages on social media, and listen to how they talk, they're violent, they're vitriolic, they are vengeful, hateful towards the opposite sex, particularly over something like abortion. Sickening, man. Sickening how motivated they are in their violence. Or their violent ideological vitriol. Anyway, so it's to me it's evident that she never loved him and that she was using him the entire time, which is really the core of where all this started. And it's sad. That's sad that Johnny Depp couldn't find real love when he thought he had it, and he did everything. From the testimony, he from the trial and his testimony, he wooed her in the most opulent way that a man could woo a woman, particularly with his prestige and his status. He wooed her like in a movie, how a rich king would woo a woman that he gave her horses, and he gave her he was incredibly generous to her family, and paid for the housing of her friends and family. And I mean, that's straight out of a storybook type of thing. And there's so many millionaires in today's day and age, right? We kind of might scoff at something like that and be like, we might not think that's as amazing as it would have been 100 years ago or something, but that is amazing. It's just kind of swept under the rug because there's so many rich people now out there, and the standard of living has increased. But anyway, he loved her, and he went out of the way for her, and did all this for her. And what does she do? She's a snake. She gaslit him, and she just set him up, and it's sad. There's so much you can learn from this, and this woman sits there, and she's in her world, she's healthy mentally, but her behavior is based in evil, right? If you look at her, she doesn't think she's evil. She thinks she's justified somehow. She knows that what she did was wrong. She knows that, she set the whole thing up. She knows the real truth. And she's really just mad that she didn't think Johnny Depp would take it that far. That she's disappointed, and she did this performance right? Which just caused everyone in the world to hate her, right? We all saw the you know, the lies, the I mean, she cried for 3 weeks straight on the, or 2 weeks, however long she was on the stand. She cried, and not one tear, not one real tear, and her crying was bad. It was just bad acting, manipulative, and this is, it's, you know, the bar was pretty low for her. It's like she didn't really have anything that was believable. I mean, the best she could come up with was that he slammed some cabinets, I think, right? So, just a display of the worst of radical modern feminism, in my opinion. And the sadness of it all is that Johnny Depp doesn't have love and doesn't have a good wife, and he may never have that because he's Johnny Depp, you know, and that's what you sign up for when you're that famous. No one loves you for who you really are. No one knows who you really are. No one can really get to know the real you because your money and your prestige and your intrigue is a motivation for them to treat you phony. And we have an entire relationship where a woman, and, you know, you have to admit that, like, yeah, it's not attractive or fun to be with an addict, an alcoholic, a drug user. That's not fun for a woman. And even she was a user herself, admittedly, and it wasn't fun for her. I'm sure that's probably part of her motivation to ruin him or get out of the marriage or whatever, you know, what have you. Which I get, that, you know, that's not fun, but, you know, she took it above and beyond. She could have just divorced him and said, hey, you know what? I want somebody who's not an addict. I want somebody who's not addicted to wine and alcohol and drugs. And I want someone present in my life. I want a loving person who's present. I don't care how much money you have. I don't want you to be addicted to drugs. She could have just done that, but instead she wanted to ruin him. And she could have divorced it, you know, and probably still made a good cut. You know, we in the Red Pill are against alimony, but she probably still could have got a lot of money just on those grounds alone. But they divorced, and she did the worst of the worst. She besmirched his name, and she lost. She lost the case, and he won. And I think justice was served in this case, and it should show. I hope it's an example that changes society. Hey, you can't just say this stuff about me. You can't just say these lies and based on your gender expect everyone to believe you. And my life just gets ruined in the process. You can't do that. That's not fair. That's not right. You know, a courtroom should be about justice and righteousness, and that is just and right. You can't just ruin somebody's career, ruin somebody's you know, career life and goals based on a lie because you just want to ruin somebody. You know, that's where the Me Too movement went too far. The whole believe all women crap. That's just nonsense. And hopefully that got exposed here today. So, sad thing, she never loved him. She manipulated him. That's what I take away from this, and it's sad because he seems like a good dude with his problems. He's got problems, and we've all got an ego. And when you're Johnny Depp, I'm sure you have an ego too. But you know, that notwithstanding, or whatever the term, he still came across pretty humble, and it's hard for somebody who's been famous as it gets since they were 20 or 25 or however when he blew up, right? It's hard for someone like that to come across humble, but he somehow does, and that's amazing. So kudos to Johnny. I appreciate the win, you know, for him and his family and his good name. And also, hopefully this is a win for men, you know, to learn what could happen if you choose the wrong woman. And look for some warning signs if you can, although it's very difficult because of love bombing and the manipulative nature of narcissists. Oftentimes you don't know who they really are until a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even 4 or 5 years down the line, when all of a sudden they change. All of a sudden there's this shift, and I've been down that road with a few women in my life. So it ain't fun. It ain't. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's a sad, sucky thing, particularly when you love that person. And what can you do? He's just a victim. He's a victim of domestic violence from her. He's a victim of not only that, he's a victim of the Me Too, of the falseness of the Me Too movement, the falseness of the radical feminist movement, which hates men, and she wanted to ruin him for really no good reason. I couldn't find a good reason why she could be that vitriolic towards him. Maybe in her mind, she felt he should have treated her better and not been an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever. But hey, man, it didn't warrant you ruining his life and his career and his good name. Well, obviously she didn't ruin his life because he's wealthy as hell, but you ruined his good name. So, and you ruined his career on Pirates of the Caribbean, which many people loved. For as corny as that may sound, people loved it. So, but anyway, I'm gonna end it there, guys. Appreciate you listening. It's been Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.